about 7:09, I think. Call the annual district budget meeting, the Region 12, School District 12 in order. This is the beginning of a meeting which technically extends all the way through to the close of the polls tomorrow, but it adjourns after this part that we do right now. We need to nominate a moderator to conduct the meeting. Do we have a nomination?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I nominate Ms. Joan Lodson to be the moderator of this meeting. She's
Second.
from the town of Washington.
Second. Are there any other nominations?
Move the nominations be closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now we must vote on her nomination.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. You have the power.
Congratulations.
You're in charge.
Yes.
You're in charge.
Now, you are hereby requested to conduct item number 4, which is to read the call of the meeting. Go right ahead.
Step to
Want to
the
stand at the
podium?
podium, please?
We need the audio for the...
Yeah.
Thanks, Joan.
Notice of annual district budget meeting. Notice is hereby given to all those entitled to vote in town meetings in the towns of Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington that a district meeting will be held on Monday, May 4th, 2015 at 7 p.m. at Chippewa Valley School, 159 South Street, Washington, Connecticut, to present for approval the annual budget for the year 2015 to 2016, prepared by the Regional Board of Education for Chippewa Valley Regional School District 12, copies of which are on file with the respective town clerks of the district and at the central office of the Board of Education. Chippewa Valley Regional School District 12, Bridgewater, Roxbury, Washington, by James Hirschfield, Chairman, Board of Education, Washington Depot, Connecticut, 06794.
Thank you very much. Now you need to turn the meeting back over to a member of the Board of Education, and I would suggest that might be Ms. Anderson.
Oh, Lord.
That having been said, I will now turn the meeting over to Ms. Valerie Anderson.
Thank you very much
Thank
for your
you.
civic duty.
Good job.
Please come every year at this time.
I'll mark it on my calendar.
No, you're going to get an
That was the
invitation.
best.
Yes.
Because otherwise you'll have
Invitation.
tag.
Ms. Anderson, would you present the budget?
From the
Item
beginning?
number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5.
Okay.
You can make a summary.
You just say, I hereby present.
I hereby present to the Board of Education the budget for 2015-2016 in the amount of $21,561,447 in accordance with Section 10-51 of General Statute.
Please add that you're presenting this for the Region 12 Towns Referendum.
Correct.
Thank you. Following adjournment, this meeting will be considered adjourned until the following day, Tuesday, May 5th, until polls open in each of the 3-member towns for the purpose of voting the question. The meeting shall then be considered as adjourned following the close of the polls in the 3-member towns and announcements made of the results of voting the question. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Greg, the second?
Second.
The second from Susan.
And I move that we adjourn in accordance with the procedure outlined by the chair.
Hot stuff. Thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The district public hearing is adjourned. Moving right on to our regular, at 7, yeah, a few minutes early, to our Board of Education business meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and would Madam Secretary please take attendance?
Yes, Valerie Anderson here. Tony Bedini. Tony Bedini.
He's here.
He's here. Ellen Brown. Gregory Cava.
Here.
Michelle Gora. Here. Emily Hibbard. Here. James Hirschfield is absent. Kelly Lutz. Jennifer Pody is absent. Michael Sinatra.
Here.
I am here. Peter Tagley.
Here.
Thank you very much. Our first item of business is we are going to move to the auditorium to see a presentation, excerpt from the middle school musical Shrek. presented by Beth Howes.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Done.
You want to leave on a high note?
Right? I know. Can we take done now? we took care of business.
That was the business, yeah.
Let your freaking flag fly.
Oh, I'll be.
Say that
Toe
so
tapping.
Never late.
Yeah. We lost somebody.
I lost
We'll
my
wait till she
Wi-Fi.
gets here.
That's, oh, bummer. She's
Ah,
coming.
you're like,
For the record, I actually have sung that song before. I'm just glad it's official. It's a real song out there somewhere. It is. I've had it
Well, that's
running
our
through my
standard
head.
meeting so far.
Right?
yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're back. We just saw a really great teaser from the middle school students who, it turns out, have been releasing since February. It's this weekend, Saturday, just Saturday?
Yep.
At 4 o'clock and at 8 o'clock. Okay, opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. Crickets. Report of the, I'm sorry, consent agenda. We have only on the consent agenda the approval of minutes from the Education Committee meeting April 20th, which is 2 weeks ago. Does anybody have any reason to take that off the consent agenda?
Nope.
Excellent. So we are going to move on to the report of the chair. Even though I'm not the chair, there's a couple of things I can report. One is that everyone in this region should have received an incredible newsletter.
Well done.
Well,
Bravo.
Thank you. A lot of help.
Well, whoever Pat enlisted and whatever you did, it's great.
Thank you.
And as I said in the email, I'm really glad that I turned that over to you. It's better than I did.
Right.
Also, nobody.
And Pat, I just want to be clear, the budget for that was no higher than it normally is.
Yeah.
Very, very similar.
Use less ink though, right?
Because I talked to at least 2 people who looked at it and said, my God, they must be spending to put out this. This is phenomenal.
It was a little bit higher, but not much, but definitely worth it. And we, it was a learning experience for us the first time. And we had a little rush charge at the end because we kind of fell a little bit behind, but we're good. It's very similar.
Money well spent because it's extremely informative.
Yes.
It really gives people an idea of what's going on here in the schools.
Yeah, I think so.
Outstanding. Well
yes,
done.
very thorough.
do you have extra copies?
Yes,
Oh,
that
good.
has in the office.
Well,
so
I
you
was
can-
just gonna say for any parents touring or
Mhm.
Sherman
It's on the
families
website.
or
Yep.
whatever.
Right.
And it's on the website as a flip
Yeah.
document.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we can send that to you if you want to send it to people. We'll also put some in the real estate hands, and we're going to get them to the legislature.
Good.
So yeah,
And you usually send some over to Sherman anyway.
yeah, we always. Oh,
Yeah, but it's just nice to have something like that on hand
Yeah.
for somebody who comes into the office inquiring. So, nice.
Also, some of our delegation, I don't know if it's a delegation, but visitors to the Cave Day in the Hill ended up in the Cave Journal. You can see pictures of, right here,
Oh.
of Michelle and Pat and some students.
Karen Files.
Karen Files. And also, there's an article that Ann Baldwin, our PR representative, got into the Cave Journal about the visit to the Day in the Hill and about how press ready we are. And there's a nice little plug at the bottom from Cave and Baldwin Media, partners in managing communications. You should get that in for both Cave and Region 12. I think that's it for my chair's report.
But that was a glowing comment about being ready to be a spokesperson. Yeah, that was the comment that was at the end of that article.
Right.
Was very glowing about what those students had to say, and how
Yes.
prepared they were.
They did a good job.
To be spokespeople.
That's
Well,
right.
excuse me, but they were Chicago kids, so
Right.
Exactly.
what did we expect different?
Superintendent's report.
Yes, I'm going to give just a second for Mr. Brown and Mr. Kava. Just last meeting, we never spoke about the technology days. And I
yeah.
would just like you two to just mention that because Karen Files and the Tech Champs did a great job. And I know I just think people should hear from you because you both went on the tours.
You did the Roxbury tour?
No, I did the Chicago.
Well, yeah, I did the Burnham tour to get an example of what happens in the elementary schools. And well, you'd be amazed. And we were even a little, I remember we were scratching our heads a little bit when we found out that the second graders would be getting Chromebooks. Some of us were like, second graders, what do they need Chromebooks for? Well, of course, part of that day of tech. It was a 3-hour program at Burnham. Was the second graders, and they were writing poems. They were learning how to change the color and the font of their worksheets, which is the kind of thing that, you know, up until about 10 years ago, adults had to learn by hook or by crook while they were trying to do something else. So now we have kids learning this in as early as second grade. But all the different things they were doing, they were making movies. They were using it as far as in an art class, learning about proportion, and one of the things she was doing with the 5th graders was thirds. Thank you. Was thirds. And by just laying a grid over a picture, imagine how easy that is for a kid to be able to learn something like that using a computer. So we got to see not only that, but then also how the teachers are collaborating with each other using some of the free Google software, and between, not only with each other in the school, but between their cohort in different schools, between Burnham and Booth and WPS. And then finally, there was a very interesting thing that I was shown on the tour, that all of us were, was that, I forget what the name of the program is, but every kid's screen and what they're working on can be shown all together in a big matrix, in a big, you know, like a grid, if there's 12 kids in the class, a 3x4 grid. And the teacher can see exactly what the kid is doing, and if they're having any trouble, if they need help with something, if they're not working, if nothing has happened, if they're ahead and ready to start something else. So I didn't realize that a teacher, even though they're already walking in and amongst the students in the classroom, had that kind of interface that enabled them to be able to even better monitor their work.
I got to say, it was truly amazing what I saw here at Chippewa. I mean, from kids who were answering really important questions, social studies questions, by drawing on a panoply of information that's out in the world to be able to support their points and show the information, to actually, in that same classroom, a student was running the tech aspect of it. So it's normally the teacher would have been, but this was a jury-rigged situation where they moved the teacher into a different classroom with kids that had not been together. This was the first time, and yet they had a student running it and the kids just performing brilliantly. We saw Spanish students having a Spanish lesson where they were Skyping with a class in Madrid. And the Spanish kids are learning English, and the American kids are learning Spanish at the same time, in the same room, basically. You're looking at science kids who are actually designing things related to their science project. I have never seen an adult, much less a student, manipulate a computer at the speed at which this was going on in order to draw in pieces of it. It was truly amazing. If people could see this, they would be blown away, and they would not ask the question of why technology is in the schools. It's a tool. It's not the be-all. It's the tool by which they advance the learning, by they bring in the concepts, discuss them, understand them. I mean, it was just absolutely an amazing tour de force, and I'm just going to shut up now and not tell you about the 15 other things that I saw when I was here, but I was very favorably impressed. It's operating at an extremely high level. It's completely interwoven within the curriculum, and it's seamless, and it's not distracting. And it's not, the technology is not the piece. The technology is merely the tool. I can't stress that enough. And the net effect, I think, is great learning is going on, and high-level discussions in the classroom about what they're learning, the content of it, not just playing with the pictures. Really well done.
And I know it was a Friday right before the holiday, so Thursday and Friday. So we're going to do it again. So hopefully more board members can come. But it really, I mean, the technology and the high level of interaction and critical thinking and problem solving is really remarkable. And it's you don't see that in all schools. You really don't see that in all schools. And that's thanks to Sheila and Karen and all the tech champions and the teachers.
I want to add one other thing. Your staff in this school are phenomenal. You know, your administration, your teachers, really functioning at an extraordinarily high level. And I was almost, by the end of the tour, able to tell the teachers from the high school students by age. But you know, I'm just getting too old. But nonetheless, they are really top-notch people.
And with that said, just to recognize our wonderful staff throughout the region for it's National Teachers Week, and on tomorrow's National Teacher Day, and on Wednesday it's National Nurse Day. So we'll recognize them with a little sweet in their mailboxes, but thanking them for what they do every day. I do want to remind everyone that tomorrow we are voting. Polls are open between 12 and 8, so remember that. Tell your friends and family. Tomorrow, the after-school program, when we tried to do it in all 3 towns, it didn't work out. Washington did have a lot of students, so they are trying, like Bridgewater did, to have a sign-up tomorrow to see if they're able to pull it off. So I wanted to let you know they're doing that tomorrow between 5 and 7. So we'll see what happens with that, but they wanted to see if it's viable in their town. We have Shrek Saturday from at 4 and at 8. Next meeting, we have volunteer reception at 6:30 p.m. So remember to be here on a little earlier for that. That's the next meeting.
Will there be cake?
There will be cake. We have 4 retirements out of the 9 people who were able to choose to do so. So we do have to have action after I just announced this. It's Janet Baer, who's a reading interventionist at WPS. Denise Frank, a math interventionist at WPS. Maria Moore, math interventionist at Booth Free and Burnham, and Abby McGow, a speech and language pathologist at WPS and Booth Free. So we do have to accept their resignation.
Their retirements?
Retirement, sorry, thank you.
Do we need to accept them individually or collectively?
I think collectively.
We have a motion to accept the retirements of these 4 teachers?
So moved and with gratitude.
With gratitude. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I meant to say gratitude for long service and not gratitude that they're...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I got that.
Gratitude.
Gratitude for their service.
Gratitude for their many years,
Yeah.
yes.
We'll
Let the minutes
Let the minutes reflect the correct statement.
And we do have a resignation.
Oh, hang on,
Sorry.
any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, the ayes have it, thank you.
We have a resignation from Alicia Robinson at the high school. And I don't think we need do we need a motion on that, Bob?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, thank you.
There's not much you can do with it.
Right, and then we do have a field trip on May 30th for a theater group.
Can I?
It's a Saturday.
Yep,
Are they going to see Wonderful Town?
On the 10th.
on the town, yes, they are.
Man, that's neat.
I know.
And how many kids?
I want to say it's close to 30 from what I remember. Oh, I have it, I'm sorry, let's see if I really remember.
How'd they score tickets for that?
30, I was right, I knew it, sorry. 30 and 5 adults. They must have connections, I don't know
That's
idea.
lovely, that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be fun. They go with Mr. Winkle on the town, and it's, I guess, the people who are, the students who are in 2x2 and our town from our school.
Great.
So that'll be fun. And that is my report.
Thank you.
I have a
moving
question
on.
for Pat. I assume we had a very successful senior trip to Boston last weekend?
Yes, we did. Excellent. Everyone had a wonderful time. They had great weather. They had a wonderful, wonderful time. Mrs. Gallo told me that the students were just thrilled to be in Boston, to go to Six Flags. The hotel keeper in Lexington said that they were the best students that have ever stayed at their hotel.
Oh, that's nice.
And I heard that was a pretty nice
Here.
hotel in Lexington, by
Yeah.
the way.
So,
All the
yeah.
walls are still up,
Where'd they
all the
stay?
windows are still in
I'm
place.
sorry?
It begins with a K, I can't
I can't remember the
remember.
name of it, but it's in Lexington. Apparently, it's a really nice place. If you're interested, we can.
Clinton? Clinton Hotel?
Maybe. I don't know. I can get back to you if you want to know. But yes, that they really had a wonderful time.
That's wonderful. Can I ask the super a question?
Mhm.
There was a very nice article in the Waterbury Republican. It was page, I think it was the main page of the Litchfield section. And it was very nice, but no mention was made of what STEM is.
Okay.
And it was a nice discussion of agri-science and the setting of
with non-awog, but it was not mentioned. STEM was said, never described, and I
Okay.
know that a lot of people are probably scratching their heads.
Okay.
So maybe, I believe that probably was Ann Baldwin that might have had that in
I'm
there.
not, you know what, there have been so many articles in the papers the last 2 weeks, I'm not sure the one you're speaking of. Is it, so I will make sure that we remedy that and we get that.
The letter to the editor.
Yeah, we're trying to push that, but,
STEM is becoming its own vocabulary word.
Yes.
You know, there are.
I do have to
people
tell you-
who've ever,
Yeah.
or who have not come across it, so.
Dan Scher, who is one of the members of our publicity team from Washington, is very into the STEM part and the healthcare piece and the food production piece. And he's working on something for a letter to the editor and to speak in Bridgewater and in Washington to really hone in on what this means at the higher end. So we are working on it. But I will make sure. And I'm not, there's been a couple of articles, right?
The
Last
Sunday
week.
paper, actually.
This week?
Sunday, May 3rd, yeah.
Okay, so I haven't seen that yet. We didn't see that. Which paper?
Waterbury Republican.
Okay, that's probably the new person that I sat with.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I had just
By the
heard,
Dateline.
I had just heard that Southern Connecticut State University is adding a bioscience degree program to their repertoire of offerings as well. So there's a need out there. Southern Connecticut, yeah. That's
Okay,
great.
we'll make sure we connect with them.
Is there still a movement to add A to STEAM, to make it STEAM, or is that?
You know, there's some people who want to do that. I mean, you know, it depends where you are. You know, it's, I think it's part of it, but we're not putting it in our title.
Starts to cover everything after a while.
Yeah, exactly,
We
but,
do have a really strong arts program
we do.
too, so.
Yeah,
it's
the
really-
A goes without saying. It's
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we have
exactly.
to make sure we emphasize that.
Right.
You know, separate.
And as I should have mentioned, you know, we're still alive, we're still in the legislature, in the session. I had Ann Baldwin is calling today to make a couple of connections. I've been in contact with Art O'Neill's office. I may go up and hand deliver things, or I may call again, we'll see.
Hot meals.
Exactly, whatever. I keep talking to Nancy in Art's office, just tell him whatever he needs. Just you want dinner, you need dry cleaning, whatever you need. Exactly. Just let me know, so we're willing, yes, exactly.
Please.
But willing to help.
Below on.
No, willing to help if he needs us to go and talk, if he needs us to have kids there, if he needs us to speak in front of a
All right,
committee.
make
That's what I
presentations
mean.
for the
That's what I'm
legislators.
talking
Right,
about.
Excellent.
So, yeah, so we're very excited. Tomorrow we're meeting to work on ed specs for the agri-science. Oh, I'm going to talk about that in a little while.
Okay, committee reports. Michelle, education.
Yeah, so our last education meeting we had a presentation about technology, and I just wanted to make a quick comment before I talk about the future, is that I think we were all, we were impressed with everything, I think that happened, but Karen Carpenter and her plans, I think we were all sort of blown away by that, and I have to say my husband was here for the career fair later that week, I think, it was last week, and was next to her, and he came home and he said, do you know about this faculty person? She's amazing. I don't know how she does all the things she does. And I just was hoping that maybe the facilities committee could find a way, we keep talking about hands-on things for our students and how powerful that would be for our students to actually get to work on a project and see it come to fruition in our building. Well, even if it's small, if it's a bathroom, whether it's the mall or it's the bathroom.
We're on
it. Okay, because I think that would just, it would be exciting for everyone to see that happen, and I think the community would really be behind something like that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And then our next education committee meeting, Todd Dyer will be here talking about the early college experience and the counseling department and things that they're working on. So we'll be hearing from him and possibly something else. I forget what though.
The study. Pre-K.
Oh, pre-K study. Okay. Okay. So if that's ready, that will be on there as well. And if there's any if anyone ever has something that they want to hear about, follow up on, please let me know. Topics that come to mind, curriculum, etc. So, all right.
And moving right along to Education Connection.
Yeah, we have a meeting Thursday this week. I think I missed the last one. I was talking in our finance committee meeting that the one before it, the talk was mostly the common calendar and the lunch program. Everyone was lamenting about all of those. So, and then I have nothing new to report.
Facilities, Greg?
Yeah, we haven't met since the last time we brought something to you, so we're meeting in 2 weeks, and we'll be talking, among other things, about the proposal that came to the board about the teachers area. So that'll be on our list.
Finance, Valerie.
We met just before this meeting. We looked at the April 28th financial report, in which there's a little more than $500,000 remaining in the budget, or 2.7%. And we reviewed different object codes and nothing really outstanding. And then we had a reconciliation of the 1% capital reserve account, in which we have a balance now available as of April 30th of $337,000 and change. And then the board has an opportunity in June to advance 1% of the budget, as we always do, which would be $216,180 into that fund. So that fund might have a balance of about $553,000 by the end of June, if we make that advance, which there's no reason not to. So that's good to know that we are spending money, we are doing what we should in terms of keeping our capital expenditures, our plant up to date, and making the fixes that are required, and still have at least $500,000 for next year. And then we did a reconciliation of the lease, the elementary fund, what we call the lease fund, and that has available cash of approximately $224,000 in it, but most of that has already been prescribed to projects that are ongoing. The game plan is to keep that, that'll likely go to a zero balance after all the work is done. And what next did we do? Oh, then we talked about the cafeteria program, and Bob has, every year we have an audit, and our cafeteria does show the operations is losing money for many reasons. Partly it's accounting of benefits against the expense of the income that comes in. The other part is that we are a declining population, and some of the food that is being provided isn't necessarily the first choice of some of our students. The breakfast program is losing money. But in our conversations, because a lot of the kids that have the breakfast are those kids that should have a free and available breakfast to them as much as possible. So we're going to kind of limp along on that, and Bob's going to do more study. But we are recommending at some future meeting an increase of the student lunch from $2.85 to $3 a lunch, with adults going from $3.50 to $3.75. But we will get that on the agenda in June. It will not take care of our loss, but it'll help mitigate and still help keep the breakfast program going. We talked briefly, and good news, evidently because Sun Life Insurance was a mutual company, we now, because it went public and distributed stock, we now own stock that has to be sold. So we might be able to sell that stock, and we've told Bob, the Finance Committee, to absolutely do that, to sell that stock for as much as perhaps in the range of $70,000. So that'll flow into the general fund. And that's it. Yes, ma'am.
It's related to the lunch thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably losing money because they allow the children to spend more money than they have. And if no one pays them, they're not getting money. Because I'll get a balance that my son is $47 negative. So if I didn't want to pay that, you're not getting $47.
Yeah, well, most
They can't just shut them
everybody
off.
pays it. You know,
Like,
we could
them
shut
off.
them off, but the kids are here and they're going through the line, and then we send the
I
notices
do
out.
feed them. You shouldn't get $47 negative. Like, that seems a problem.
Bob will be paying you a visit.
I've paid other
right.
He's gotta
visits.
fill out that overdraft
Yeah,
form.
You know, it's rare
But
that.
that's what I
Me
mean,
and
like, what if I
Green
didn't
used to
send
do
a check, like, he spent another,
Well, we have
$300
ways,
are you not
We have ways.
ways to get money.
just
Well,
saying,
yeah.
to cut them off at like $10.
We just, well, I could put that in, but it would be halfway through a week before, and then the kids wouldn't have anything.
Well, no,
to
because you
eat.
send in your check, and then they have a balance.
Right.
And then you get a warning, and then you get another warning, and it's like $50.
Yeah, I know.
Just
We
wait
send
till your
one,
kid's
so-
in college.
I can only imagine. But I'm just saying, if I didn't send in a check, you would be very negative.
That's true.
Well, we
I
have.
think everyone does though, everyone pretty much does.
Yeah, and we have the ability to put it on credit card if you like.
Great.
That's even
Even better.
Even better.
You don't have to see
Sky is the
it.
limit.
Which at some point is gonna get expanded to cover other things, but right now we're using it primarily in the CAF, but at some point is hopefully going to expand into the things that they do and collect money from for the students up here.
Oh, the Chicago
Oh, that'd be
Fund.
so
That'd be
nice.
nice.
All those
It might make it a little
checks
easier
and
for people, but
photos.
you'll have less cash around.
That's right.
So we're
Hey,
I'm
Bob.
looking at that.
How, what is the phrase that you describe the kids that really, that, you know, are at a certain level in income that get a free, and what is that called?
It's a free and reduced application.
I was halfway there. And Bob has determined that a great deal of our breakfast customers qualify. And in our conversation in the Finance Committee, we think that that is a worthwhile program to continue, no matter how in the hole that program might be.
We're trying to look at ways to get more participation in there. And it's difficult because they stagger in and to the school, obviously, and they're not here all at the same time like a class would be, but you know, we're trying to look at different options to try to do something with it and make it easier for kids to pick up a early morning breakfast. If we can do that, that's the goal. But
I thought
it's
everyone
been
would be
slower than I had anticipated. It's partly the logistics out here. You know, when you look at other programs, they started the same way, but they then had a tendency to take off. And we stagger because we're so small.
But the good news is the sale of the Sun Life shares.
That's the good news, I guess.
And
We
we
have
have
to sell.
breakfast, a lot of breakfast.
And that's my report.
Thank you. Negotiations, Greg.
Yes, we continue our negotiations with the unions representing the clerical and paras, and the union representing the custodians and cafeteria workers. We expect to wrap that up with any luck toward the end of this month, but it might go into June.
And back to Michelle, policy.
We met March 23rd. Is that our last one? No, April 20th. I didn't have an agenda, but I wrote it on the side. April 20th. It was a 2-hour meeting to try to get through a really thick policy. It was that took a while. Anyway, and that should be coming to the board on our next available agenda, as well as some other housekeeping type policies. So we're just continuing to work.
And then as far as long-range planning, we ceded our time to policy because two of us run policy, and we needed to do that extra work, so we didn't meet. And then it remains to be seen whether we'll be meeting for the on May 18th, depending on what kind of long-range plan we plan to do. That's it for committee reports. No old business tonight, so we're moving to new business. 9.1, the presentation of the drawings, draft drawings, for the Chicago Valley Regional Agri-Science STEM Academy.
I just wanted to show you these. Draft is the key word, and I just want to start my little presentation by saying we're very aware that we have not received the funds yet for this from the legislature, but we are hopeful. And we're under a time constraint, so we do have to do some preliminary work, even though we're waiting to hear from the legislature. So this is a draft, because we're still working a little bit on the fields, okay, the sporting fields. We need to do a little work with that. So basically, this is the front of Chapag. Okay, this is the door we all walked in. This is where we are. We have a little star say, "You are here." Okay, but this area here is where the auto area is and the woodworking room is. This area is going to be renovated in our plans, which I'll show you in a minute. There is an addition here, and this is going to have classrooms, I'll show you, and a greenhouse. We are planning for a building over here that's going to have small animals and equipment, machinery. And this is going to be the equestrian building with everything you need for horse raising and riding and all of that kind of stuff. As you come in the main driveway, which you all know, this road here, that is here now, it's the first road, okay? It's going to be reconfigured a little bit. We're going to have a parent drop-off here for all students in Chapag and in agri-science, the both programs, okay? And so this is where so the cars dropping off will not be mixing with the buses. Okay, we have increased the amount of parking spaces, and we've had to move the tennis courts. Now again, the land configuration is a little up in the air right now because we're going to work tomorrow with the architect. And then the buses are going to come in the same area. Everybody's going to be dropped off here from the buses, and we've expanded 49 spaces here extra, and we have added a retaining wall. Okay, so this is the overall picture that we're working on. This is a little more detailed of what's going on in the building. So the blue piece, or teal, which is here, renovations, is a renovation of the current building. So what we like about this too is when you come up to Chapag, you're going to see the new Agri-Science Center. So that's what you're going to see when you come up the drive. So we are adding an agriculture mechanical shop. So we're still going to have mechanical, it's just going to be redone. This is a tool room. There's an agriculture tech classroom, technology, aquaculture classroom, and an aquaculture lab, and some storage. Okay, so that's the current building that's going to be renovated. And at the same rate of either 80% or 95%, depending on what the legislature decides. Then if you come here, the entrance, remember we said this will be parent drop-off. This will also be an entrance for like if they have a flower sale or a plant sale or some kind of program, which would then cut it off from the rest of the building. Here we have a faculty area and an administrative area. Then you have some toilets. Over here is a sales room, food storage, a food science laboratory, a biotechnical classroom, an animal science classroom, a small and a large, mechanical electrical receiving, plant and science classroom, and then it leads out to the production greenhouse and sales greenhouse. Okay, so now this does not include the two buildings, which we like to be separate from the rest of the school, so that this way on weekends and holidays, etc., they can be serviced, the animals, without having to open up the whole building. So we're happy about that. So basically the BoAg addition on the main level, that's this piece. That's 24,650 square feet. Then you have the renovation piece, which is this piece, is 9,500. And then you have the outside buildings of the large and small area, the garages, and the equine center, and that's almost 30,000 square feet. So together, the whole project is 63,500 square feet. What we are working on, tomorrow we're starting, we're not starting from scratch, we're going to borrow from another agri-science center, STEM center, excuse me, and we are going to start with their ed specs and then work it to our framework. This is the official name, Chapag Valley Regional Agri-Science STEM Academy. So this is it. I have it on my desk, so I'm trying to remember it. It doesn't roll off the tongue, but we're working on it. So this is where we are. I'm happy to answer any questions. Val?
Where's the STEM part? Do you
STEM?
have technology?
Yeah, you have a
engineering
biotech
groups?
classroom right here.
Okay.
You have an agriculture tech classroom here. You have an agriculture lab. So that's the technology STEM part. And then STEM is throughout. I mean, the work they do, the research they do, you know, there's a lot of different parts. The STEM is intertwined in all of the programs. So it's hard to pull it out, but when people want to think of the technology piece, then you see like the technology classrooms and you see the labs, you see you know, what they do with the animals and all of that kind of stuff. I think when you see the curriculum, you'll see it better.
Okay.
This is just the name of this aspect of the school. Otherwise, the school is still
Shabbat Valley School. That's the name of the school.
And Valerie, all the plants that are in the ground, they all have stems too.
There you go.
You're so naughty.
Michelle?
Two things, and I'm kind of nitpicky at this point in the process, but I just was looking at the drawing. So the renovated section,
Yes.
right outside of that, it's just a space that kind of bothers me now, and I see that that space is there, and if that's really going to be like our new front door, the nice green area.
Well, it's going to be the front door to this.
Oh, okay,
It's
but if
not
it's
gonna
the
be-
parent, okay, so it's not our front door, it's the parent drop off, the buses,
Right.
so our front door is still there.
Our front door.
It's just as you're driving up, you know, we have dumpsters and
Oh, no,
stuff out there.
that'll all be taken care of.
Okay,
And what they like about this is they also like light. They want to bring in light.
which is great.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
it's
I just,
important.
you know, it's the mechanical shop with the
Yeah.
garage doors. I just, you know, it's
it'll
like when
be
you have your
redone.
garage facing
be
forward and you got
redone.
all your junk out there. That's our front doors.
The garage is actually in that other building.
Right, the garage is going to be moved
That garage
here.
that you're associating is gone.
It's going to be moved here.
It's renovated into educational space, but the
Right.
Okay,
garage.
that's great. The only other thing that I just would request in the whole planning and budgeting is that the field space that is being locked, that we budget to.
Yeah, that's what we're
to
working on.
Create it.
That's what we're working
And-
on.
And,
Because Don is looking at wetlands issues and, you know, one of the things we want to do is we want to keep all of the movement of fields and rebuilding fields and everything at a local level. We don't want to bring it to the state level. So that's where we are right now.
okay.
So we're looking at different things.
And then out, the sheds that are now currently across the pond, kind of where that driveway, I guess, would be.
Yeah.
That stuff. Is that mechanical stuff or is that track stuff? What is that?
Track
most?
stuff
Track
is most of it, and the other is got a piece of equipment in there that we're having difficulty getting rid of.
Okay.
And I can't get anybody to the federal government to sign off on it. It goes back.
Is that old generator thing?
Yes.
You got it.
Oh.
It's power
Yep,
generator.
I remember that. Okay.
We will,
That's going by the end of this year.
once
when we're-
Excellent.
we have
Throw it away.
these are drafts, I mean, these
Right,
are
right,
really,
right.
just to be able to put something in front of people to
Mail it
see
to
that it's a
Washington.
reality and what we're thinking about. Once we have a more definite plan that is still flexible, we'll have Charlie Booth come and you'll tell him everything and then he can make changes
Okay.
and all that kind of stuff.
It would be nice too, if that space is gonna be open, where the dumpsters are now, and if there is light, it'd be a nice opportunity to have a picnic, like tables and chairs, like a place for the kids to sit outside.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it has a lot of, you visited a couple of places.
Like the
You know, they
patio.
have a beautiful little area of plants and trees and, I mean, it's just really
Yeah,
nice.
it's an
So-
opportunity to really kind
Yeah.
of create a great
If you'd like to
space.
see a program, you could go on May 9th, which is Saturday, and go buy some plants over at Nanook, because it's a
Oh, it's
plant
the
sale
big-
day.
Yeah, it's a big day.
It's this Saturday.
It's a big day.
And I think it's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Mike?
The landscaping, would that also be part of the next more detailed plan, or?
I would think so, but I don't want to say yes or no. I know that they're putting in a retaining wall. I know that there's a lot of work that has to be done outside, so I'm assuming it's going to be part of it.
But even just the aesthetic landscape?
Oh, yeah, that has to be, absolutely.
Trees and shrubs. The other question I had was in terms of, is there any outdoor fields available for crops, for ornamental plants? I mean, anything that's going to be set aside for the students to work with?
I would assume, but I don't want to say at this point. When I visited Nanawa, I saw a lot of the hydroponic gardening.
Right, which would be indoor.
I know that they did have areas outside for flowers and stuff, but I'm not exactly sure. We're not at the part of writing any curriculum at this. I mean, we are, but that's like right now we're just trying to get everything done for the grant and stuff.
Yeah. I'm just thinking in terms of the future. I mean,
absolutely.
I know when we were talking about the program.
You have to realize, though, that our growing season doesn't necessarily coincide with.
Oh, right, which is hence the greenhouse.
Outdoor. So,
right.
We're lucky if we have.
But I mean, many of the students are going to be working in fields where they're required to work with our growing season.
Right,
so,
right. But then we're going to have probably, September and October maybe, but then we have frost from November until maybe next week.
But they won't be
Sure.
doing internships during the summer?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah,
and
they'll be
They
doing
work
and I
in the
know
summer.
when we were talking about the program, one of the things that really excited me was the possibility for students to be involved in some of that. So I'm thinking, that we would want some blank space for future canvases.
Well, the students in Nanawa, they mow lawn, they do bushes, they build barns, and
Right.
I mean,
They also
everything.
work
I'm
with
guessing there's
Danny
a lot of
Lowe,
landscaping done
we buy the low
by the
corn
kids as part of the program.
and so forth. But Danny then, they had a unique situation. They have a big parcel of property in a flood zone
Yeah.
down on Route 6. If you ever drive Route 6 to get to Watertown, it's on the right. Nanawa actually owns that, but they, in turn, you'll see corn growing there, or sometimes other crops. And what it is Danny Logue is a farmer over there. He farms it, but he has the kids working with him. And they work on other farms over in that area too. They also go out on, they have to do community,
Right.
it's not community service.
You're going to have
CSA.
more
A lot of work.
the ag students.
Student
They're doing
experiment.
those classes in this building.
They usually
They'll be taking
happens
their
in
English,
spring.
their government, their language, their basic science.
So
It'll
that's
all be
what
done in
they
this
do.
building, not over there.
Let's, Michelle, thank you.
I was just going to add on to that. I was going to say when I was talking to Bill one day, Hank Ferentz is on his board of advisors, and his farm's across the road.
I was thinking that too.
So Hank worked here for like 30 years. So
He lives on a ridge on the other side.
yeah. So he's had Nanawa students because
Exactly.
we're part of that working at his farm. So I'm hoping they'll create a nice partnership because that's on they can walk.
Mhm.
Sure.
There'll be a switch over.
But also too, I keep thinking about the engineering aspect and think about Karen Carpenter and being able to build, sheds that maybe could be sold and, I don't know, like, things like that. That would be a great opportunity. I'd like to be first to buy a shed, make it a pool house.
Mallory?
We own across the way.
Yes.
And, and then the soccer fields and all that, the smaller soccer fields.
Right.
And then part of that is for our septic system.
Right.
But I would love to see someone claim that before it disappears.
It's not disappearing.
We spoke about it today, and Don was talking about it. He has to do a little research because the leaches are there, am I correct?
The leach fields are there,
Leach
but
fields.
Great
they're
for
also,
There's a difference.
but they're also adjacent. It's sitting next to wetlands.
Yeah.
That's the
We all
problem.
have septic.
Yes, we'll be
So we're
reading
used
the
to
board
Yeah.
later.
This is not my area of expertise, so I appreciate that, we're looking into it.
Okay.
The leaches.
So that's basically, as soon as we know more information, we will make a presentation to the facilities on May 18th with a draft of the ed specs. We want to do that. So,
That's good.
Great.
Any more questions? 9.2, to consider and if appropriate, approve changes to the 2015-2016 teacher evaluation plan.
this is Mrs. DeBrito. This is every year part of the law. You have to approve changes to the teacher eval program. So she will present the changes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Debbie's passing out a little packet for you. The first 4 pages inside the packet are specific to a new dispute resolution process. The teachers wanted to put in steps and protocol for addressing any dispute that a teacher would bring up, and that would be something that, let's say, that person and the evaluator couldn't agree on goals or couldn't agree on focus areas that the teacher really felt strongly about, that there is this appeal process, a committee of teachers and administrators that would come together to hear the concerns of the teacher, also speak with the evaluator, and then there's a form for them to complete, and if they could not come to an agreement, then it would go to the superintendent, and the superintendent would have ultimate say for that dispute. So it's outlined 10 steps, and then the actual forms that would need to be completed. Into the packet, at the bottom it says page 3. It's really page 3 in the current evaluation document. The reason it is here is because there have been some changes in the membership of the committee, and so I wanted to reflect that for the 2015-16 school year. And finally, the last page is also in the current document, currently page 15. I have circled for you the changes. We currently have a 3-year cycle. What that means is a teacher would be on a formal 1 year and 2 years informal. We are changing that to every other year. Every other year is a formal and every other year is informal. So reducing the time span there. And then we also added some additional notes to the bottom of that particular page. Specifically, an administrator can conduct additional observations at any time, even though a teacher might be on an informal year, and that normally is 3 informal observations. An administrator can certainly do additional observations. The second bullet there is specific to informal years, that not every domain and indicator and attribute needs to have evidence. So there's some flexibility there for the evaluator. And then the last bullet is specific to a teacher being able to request a change. If they are in a formal year, that they request, if they're in an informal year, that they can request to have formal observation instead of informal observations, as long as they do that before their mid-year review.
I see on your committee list, it's already changed.
Yeah.
It's Abby's no longer with us for next year. Will she be replaced, or is there just one person?
Well, this was done before.
Right.
So it would be up to the teachers if they wanted to add an additional teacher. Sure.
Great.
I'd like to move that we approve the changes to the 2015-16 teacher evaluation plan as presented.
Second.
Question.
Discussion, yeah.
Is this something the board's attorney should review?
We don't usually do it. It really is an administrative procedure.
Yeah, it's part of the state SEED program, which started about 2 years ago, I think now. This is the 3rd year full implementation, and it really is an agreement between the teachers and the administrators. We have guidelines we have to follow, and then, you know, you can tweak them a little bit. So that's why Teresa has met as head of the committee with administrators and teachers, and you tweak it a little bit, but it's in line with the state. And what happens now is once you approve it, it goes to the state, and the state will let you know if you meet their guidelines. So you don't really have to have an attorney look at it, although Teresa does check with the attorney if there are questions. So I think we're okay.
Absolutely, but we have to stick within the state law.
Right.
And we do hear back from the state if anything needs to be changed.
Susan?
Yes, can you clarify what the SVAA and the SVEA?
Sure, Chappaqua Valley Educators Association and Chappaqua Valley Administrators Association.
It's the unions for the teachers.
Right.
The E is the teachers, the A is the administrators. Third letter.
Michelle?
Were you finished?
Well, just thinking, the one who is calling the dispute or submitting the dispute has no say in who becomes part of the appeal committee.
That is correct. Their union does. They will go to their leadership, and their union leadership will determine who the two teachers will be.
And where is that in here?
Right here. On the first page in, if you flip over the steps there. Step 4, within 5 school days, the SVAA and SVEA will select 2 members for a total of a 4-member appeals committee.
The rationale behind that is that the teacher has the chance to work out the dispute with the administrator.
Sure.
So if you want to work it out and you don't want it to go to resolution by other people, work it out. If not, then you give up the right, let other people handle it.
I think,
Oh, sorry.
This isn't exactly a question about this, but it just occurred to me as we were reviewing this that I don't think we've talked about SEED in a while after the first initial, when it was going in place, and I remember we talked about it all the time with the additional training for the administrators and the differences, and so maybe we could think about I know you're not prepared to speak about it today, but
I can speak about it. I'm very prepared. I came last year, so anytime there's a change, I come, and then the bulk of the document really stays the same.
Maybe we can do that after the new year, because the fiscal year, because we'll have new board members, and it'll be a good.
Just because the initial seed
was onerous.
And it was a radical change in how we evaluated the teachers and what that meant. And I actually don't feel like we've really heard the outcomes, like for teacher, I forget the rubric,
Sure, the 4 levels of performance.
Yeah, exactly. But like, does anyone ever get put on that bottom? Like, I would just really like to hear about how it's going, and from the administrators, do you feel like it's been a good tool or not, or is it too onerous?
We certainly could definitely share that, and you should know that the teacher ratings do have to be reported to the state. They need to know the numbers for each of the 4 levels of those ratings at the end of the school year.
That's interesting. Is that a public report?
It is not a public report, but it goes to the state.
Okay, so it goes to the state, but it's not part of like a school profile or anything.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
2 things. First off, it's Anderson with an E, and
that is terribly embarrassing.
That's fine. But the other thing is that if there was a dispute and you took it out as far and as many steps as required, which I have a feeling if there's a dispute, it likely will, unless the decision is positive for the teacher. You're talking about 55 school days out. If you add all these deadlines together, these allotments of time. And so basically, that's a long time to keep going. I mean, is there any way to shorten the process or prescribe this?
That's not the intent. If you look at the first page in step 7, the expectation is that within 20 school days of initiating a dispute, the matter will be resolved. And if it is not, then we go on to step 8, in which then the appeals committee will meet with the superintendent to indicate that they're just not able to come up with an agreement. And then the superintendent will meet with the teacher and evaluator after meeting with the appeals committee, and the superintendent will have 10 school days to render a final decision to be able to do that. So I'm hoping that that's less than the 55 that you...
But I would think that if you're appealing a negative evaluation, you're going to push it to that limit, and you're giving a total, hopefully not as much as, but clearly, if someone's pushing, they're going to push all the way, and it's almost 2 months, and that just seemed pretty drawn out. I was just hoping that we could cut the time frame down.
I think when the teachers and administrators were talking about this, they were looking at what's reasonably expected. because the process to put the committee together, and when those teachers and administrators are going to get together to hear from the teacher and the evaluator, they're going to have to decide whether that's during school hours, after school hours. So I think they felt they were giving a reasonable amount of time to make that happen. Someone could become ill, all kinds of things could happen, and so we were trying to be reasonable. But if that's your recommendation to change that, you have final approval.
Thank you.
This is not a topic for collective bargaining, am I correct?
Correct.
This is a policy.
This has to do with teacher evaluation. It is
Right.
not, it's separate from their contract.
Right, now, the only question I have, or actually several questions I have, but the first one after that is, does it talk about, and anything this is part of, does it talk about, how this process can be changed? Because I wouldn't want to find out that we were locking ourselves into a process. I mean, I'm starting to think that Pete may be onto something, having our council take a look at this. I just want to make sure that we don't end up, because the language seems to mean something, but I'm not sure it means what you're saying it means.
I think,
And I don't want to get into a situation where somebody then disputes the result because they say that you didn't do it in accordance with the procedure, and then the next thing you know, we're wishing we had vetted it better.
well, first of all, every year we have to relook at the policy. So in a year, if we don't like it, we can make changes. The number 10 is the thing that we fought to keep in, because that's not something that the union wanted. They didn't want, the superintendent to have the final decision. Once that's there, I'm fine with it.
The law also indicates
right,
with the
we fought very hard
flexibility.
to keep that in there. And there was a lot of, this was a negotiation. And as far as coming to consensus, and it was difficult. It was not an easy time getting everybody to agree to this.
Well, and the evaluation document is a collective process of teachers and administrators by law. We need to have both on the committee. So we do have to stick within those particular guidelines. And everyone was really thinking this probably isn't going to happen, but they felt, based under the advisement that they got from the teachers, that they wanted to have just some clear steps of what that protocol would be.
Yeah. The appeals committee members meet separately within those 5 days. How is number 6? The appeals committee shall have an additional 5 school days to render a decision. Are
correct.
they meeting within those 5 days?
Right. They're going to
The
have
meeting
to
is
pull
in-
all the information together and make a decision,
A unanimous decision.
a unanimous decision. And if they can't, that's when it moves on to the superintendent, who has final say.
What impact on a classroom might this have if someone is disputing an observation or something? Would you then have these members, observing someone, just going into the classroom?
No, that the
gathering
meeting would just be
information
a separate meeting for that teacher to explain their situation and why they're disputing it. The appeals committee is not going to go do any observations and rate the teacher at all. Their role is solely to try to come together and make a decision regarding the specific dispute between the teacher and the evaluator.
How long have we been doing the SEED evaluation program?
3 years. It's changed slightly every year, I have to say. The state did make.
And in the 3 years, have there been any, we look at this in two parts.
No.
There have neither been situations when a teacher and evaluator can agree on objectives, goals,
No.
nor has there ever been this second stage
No.
in which this dispute resolution protocol is being put
No.
in place.
No.
Is this a new dispute resolution protocol or an improvement on an existing dispute?
The dispute resolution protocol always had to be in place. It was very vague just with the state guideline language. they wanted to articulate it step by step so that it wouldn't be very laissez-faire and have no parameters.
So in other words, this isn't a,
This is to tighten it.
right, but it is, once again, it's a fail-safe based on the first dispute, the informal dispute between the teacher and an administrator failing. And we haven't even ever reached that level.
No, no.
Greg?
Okay, so I understand why the SVEA is involved on the teacher side, but I don't understand, can you explain why it's the SVAA as opposed to the administrators? This is evaluation of teachers by administrators who can do that because they have a certification that permits them to evaluate teachers. So I don't understand why the administrators union is involved. Maybe you could enlighten us.
They're one and the same. The administrators are a part of the SVAA.
Well, they're
And so
members of the SVA, but
Right.
the SVAA as an entity, I don't understand why it is conducting evaluations. That's the union for the administrators. It's not the administrators. The administrators are employees of the region, and they happen to be unionized, and their union bargains for them collectively on their contract. But beyond that, I don't understand why the union is involved. I'm not the connection.
I think it came up because they were talking about the leadership of the SVEA determining who the two teachers would be, and so it just, I think, fell natural. Well, then the SVAA will determine who the two administrators are. If we can change that language, but they really felt that then the leadership determines who the two members are for each.
Well, yeah, I
So
know.
it's leadership on both sides.
But I think the leadership of the administration is sitting in the middle of this table here. And I don't understand why the administration itself is not simply acting for the administration in terms of teacher evaluations. And that may mean that the superintendent, he doesn't do everything. The superintendent has, other administrators who perform these functions. And my guess is you probably have a sort of standing group that is going to be, doing this for the course of the year, rather than have to pick them. But maybe you don't. Maybe you select them ad hoc. But I guess the question I have is, I don't understand what role the union plays. That's the disconnect to me.
I think what Teresa's saying is the union doesn't play so much role as the union leadership are simply a clean entity to be the ones choosing the committee members, as opposed to leaving it up for the administrations to have to sit together and pick somebody when this happens. They're just saying, well, the leadership of the SVEA chooses, and the leadership of the SVAA chooses, and then we have a committee, and then we go there to figure out the dispute.
Yeah, but why wouldn't the curriculum coordinator, who's acting in a role here, just simply not select these people? Why would we have it selected by a union rather than by a person who holds a title?
Well, oh, you mean why is it written down here that it's because the person could change?
Well, yeah, but the union is. On the teacher side, theoretically, the union shouldn't be involved either. But I can understand why it is. But on the administrator's side, this isn't the teachers' union versus the administrators' union.
No,
this is the teacher disputing an evaluation by an administrator. And so you've got to select someone, probably a different administrator,
right.
To sit down and try to resolve this. And that's why it's not
So
necessarily any standing person. Do I have that right? Is that the idea?
Right, so that question came up, who's going to determine who the members are? And it just flowed naturally that it would be the leadership for each group to make sure there was representation for each.
Which is an administrator.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
So when you
It is
say
an
the
administrator
here,
Within
right?
that-
It's one of the administrators. This is just saying whose
It's
job
kind
it
of
is.
putting a fence around who it could be.
Right.
And it's just this
Right.
group of people
That's
who
right.
happen to be
Yeah.
in this particular grouping. It's not the union per se, and it's really a superintendent's role is at the final stages, and it's hard for the superintendent. It'd almost be like stacking the deck in some regard if they didn't do it collectively, I would suspect. And when you read it, that's what I envision happening.
And apparently both sides are happy with it.
Yes.
And the role of the SVAA is really limited. I mean, their only role is in selecting the members of the committee.
Right, 2 members.
That's it.
Right, right.
They're not involved in any other way.
No.
What happens with the results?
Well, if,
8, 9, and 10.
Right, and then I see that it's written.
right, so whatever the appeals committee decides is the solution. If the appeals committee cannot make a decision, then whatever the superintendent decides is the solution. There's nowhere else to go, and the law indicates that.
I think, you know, aside from all this, and that was why I asked whether it even been to this point, is the teachers are all professionals. And every professional knows pretty much 99% of the time, do not dispute your evaluations. You just figure out what the problem is and you improve yourself. And if it turns out to be a weird political personality problem, that's why this is in place. But really only in any organization, whether it's private or public or for-profit or non-profit, you're always going to have policy in place in case your administrator or your boss loses his mind and has it out for you, and you really have to dispute, you know, something. So that's why I think, you know, really, if you think about teachers, and correct me if I'm wrong, those of us who are teachers here, it's no different than the business world, where you're first, even if you feel wrong, I've been doing that right, well, you just have to show it better for your next evaluation, because disputing it is rather fruitless. But it can happen, and you need to have protections in there for when it's necessary, and that's what this is. And I was curious, because I'm not as familiar with the academic world as I am with the business world, how much this happens. And clearly it's similar. It doesn't happen much unless you have an extremely volatile situation, and that's what all this is for. So with that said,
We have a motion.
can we vote on the motion?
Can I just add
Yeah.
one more thing? I think it's very important to, there would certainly be action based on the recommendation. You know, if the dispute is negated or withstood. But the point of bringing up a dispute should not be, I'll say, held against a teacher. No one should feel like they, ever, you know, bringing up a dispute then becomes a problem. If a teacher loses their point, their appeal, then the function is to then just, like you said, go on and make it right, whatever is going on with performance. But the dispute itself, then it goes away, right? It's not
Absolutely, we move
personnel
on, right.
files or anything like that.
The expectation is everyone will absolutely be professional.
Good.
Okay, the motion to accept these changes to the...
Oh, okay. I have one more question. Can you tell me, what's the difference between what we have now and this? What's the, I mean...
The difference is the first paragraph that's there in that page, dispute resolution process, that language is from the legislation. So when a teacher and evaluator cannot agree on objectives, goals, evaluation period, feedback, performance, practice, it gives a whole list.
Right, no, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the dispute resolution protocol.
Right,
What's different
so
now?
the protocol didn't exist. That's the difference. It just, you know, said that usually it's mutual agreement. The language kept bringing up in the law, there has to be mutual agreement in all of these areas. And so the teachers are like, well, we really don't have a protocol for handling a situation when there isn't mutual agreement, and they wanted something in print.
Yeah, I'm...
So this is not a legal document?
Oh, you
Well,
bet
it
it
is
is.
with the state.
It's part of a state structure, and the state will make sure that it is not
Yeah.
a weak link in its structure.
We'll hear from the state. If they're not happy with it, they will tell us and we'll have to redo it.
I'm going to amend my motion, though. I think I want to move that we approve this policy as outlined, subject to review by our legal counsel.
We haven't needed a legal counsel before.
No, but, you know.
We also haven't had the dispute resolution protocol either, and I want to make sure that...
We have had a dispute resolution protocol, haven't we? It's just...
It didn't have the steps. It
Details.
didn't have the steps.
I just want to make sure it's dovetailed with labor contracts to make sure there's nothing that is inconsistent or problematic, and, you know, he's very familiar with those.
Want to pay for my second?
And it's not a policy, it's just a teacher eval, you know,
Yeah, it's
educator
not-
document.
It's a regulation, yeah. Do we really want to, you really want to spend time and money on?
Yep, because let me tell you something, if you have to ask that question after the meetings we've had this year over issues that have come up on the labor side, then I think you better recognize that this has to make sure that it dovetails and does not have any inconsistencies with what our contracts are. And I'm telling you, the stuff gets ugly and it gets expensive, and a few bucks on an attorney at the beginning is a lot cheaper than paying someone to sort out a mess later.
But this doesn't have anything to do with contracts, though. Does it, the contracts don't, they must stipulate that?
I don't know, it may not. I just want to make sure it doesn't, and I don't really want to take the chance that it does, and then we find out the hard way that we're wrong.
But I mean, you negotiate the contracts, you know whether they have anything in the contracts that relate to or refer to
Alan, I'm not a labor lawyer, okay? I'm not a labor lawyer, but our lawyer is, and he's a very good labor lawyer, and I just would like him to take a look at it. If he sees something that's problematic, he can report back to us, and if he doesn't, he can pass on it and it moves through. And it doesn't take more than probably 20 minutes of his time to look through it. Or half an hour, I don't know, something like that. It's not a big deal, it's just 10 rules.
Kelly?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of having our lawyer look at this document as well, because I think it's going to be fairly binding, and if there are any deviations from the contracts, there's going to be a big...
Well, in that case, you get to be the second, if you'd like to.
Great, second.
Seconding the amendment. Valerie?
Has the two unions looked at this, or the union heads, and the two unions say this is a document they can live with, and this is a document that really is just a protocol, it's not a policy?
Correct.
It's just, you know, how to get to where we want to go. It's like, here's our suggested crib sheet to put down what we need to do to move forward.
Correct.
But it's all agreed to by the two unions.
Absolutely. Every administrator is on the committee. You see their names there, and likewise, all the representation from the teachers. Their leadership is there as well.
And, okay, so I don't see the reason why the attorney has to approve it, because if the two unions have said this is a document they want to just facilitate a dispute resolution, there's nothing on the document itself that is an evaluation, that has any points of evaluation. It just says, what's your disagreement?
But it's not a union matter, though.
I think that, I mean, we're just always knocking on the door of the attorney, and this is just a document to facilitate. It's not a policy. It's not an evaluation. Did we have our evaluation reviewed by an attorney?
No.
It's reviewed by the state.
No.
It's reviewed by the state, and this is in conjunction with that.
State
It's
law.
just the next steps, just to facilitate if there is a dispute,
Correct.
like a report card. I don't see the reason to get this in front of the attorney if the unions agree,
If the state's happy with it.
and if the state's happy with it, which evidently is the case.
Michael?
I think that, you know, if Greg has a concern, he certainly knows more about the law than most of us here. And as he said, I don't think it would take a lot of time and energy. I think, you know, he's probably well versed that this is based on state mandates, and it probably wouldn't take him very long. So if it would make him more comfortable, then I'm fine with that. I don't think it's a waste of money.
There is, and I agree, and there is another party in here, Valerie. It's not just between this union and that union. First of all, it's not even between the administrators union and the teachers union. It's between the administrators evaluating teachers. They do that for who? They do that for management of this school district, for the superintendent, i.e. us.
That's
and
their
so there's
job.
another party. It's not a union matter. It's not even a union matter. And the idea that these things are in there, and we toss these in here, and we put in the administrators union because the teachers wanted the teachers union. I'd like to make sure that our lawyer thinks that that's even remotely a good idea and doesn't violate some issue, law, principle, provision of contract, or put us in a disadvantageous position. And I'd just like to make sure that's looked at. That's the only reason I'm suggesting.
All right, we have to vote on the amendment. All I would say is I...
No, we don't. I withdrew the prior motion and amended it. I mean, when I submitted an amended motion, I withdrew the prior motion. The only one that's on the floor is the amended motion, which has been seconded. So you can vote on that directly.
So did you get a second on your withdrawal? Your original second doesn't have to
Kelly
withdraw
seconded
your
it.
original motion?
No, if I withdraw the motion, the second dies. The second doesn't have to consent to it. Someone would have to read and second it, though. You need a second for the amended motion.
But you got.
Right.
I thought we always had to have a second to withdraw a motion.
You
I've
know,
always done it out of courtesy, but
Yeah.
maybe we don't have to.
yeah, you really don't
So
have to.
can you restate what the hell you're doing?
I move that we approve the changes to the 2015-16 teacher evaluation plan as presented to us in these materials, subject to review by our council.
All right, well...
Review and approval by our council.
So if our council doesn't approve it, then what?
Then it comes back to us.
It comes back to us.
Nothing
All right,
said.
I really find it unlikely that something that has to be approved by the state would ever be an issue for... I would imagine that if, no matter how we submit this to the state, they have to approve it. So I wouldn't imagine that this would fail our attorney yet succeed at the state level.
Because the state's looking at different things, Alan. The state is not looking at the issue of whether or not it creates an issue with some other agreement or other provision we have. The state just cares, does it comply with the statute in terms
But the problem
of, is it a procedure that's reasonable under the statute? It could be reasonable under the statute, a disaster for us. I'd just like to get that second part off
It's not
of
even a
the table.
procedure, it's just a protocol. It's
You think it's not going to be perceived as a procedure by the teacher who says, now what's my next step?
It's going to be fairly binding.
I mean, that's as close to a procedure as I know of. A protocol is a procedure.
Well,
Because by that time, when he gets to that point, we want to make
If
sure.
you're going, for
Let's
example,
vote
if
on
you're going
whether
to
we want to
terminate a
make,
teacher, it gets pretty ugly.
And you know what, then if you're right, then Gary or one of our attorneys, and he'll agree with you, and then
Just a regular bill.
all right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor to accept as amended, to accept this
All in favor?
teacher evaluation updates dependent on the approval of our board council.
Hand vote, aye.
I know, I think if you forgot the next part.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Hands up. Got everybody's hands?
Yes.
All against?
Okay.
Then you're fired, bro.
Huh?
You're fired.
But you can dispute it.
Any abstaining? And we have one abstention.
Okay.
All right, 9.3, to consider and appropriate approve revision to the 2014-2015 school calendar, which we all got an email and explaining what that change is.
Yes.
So moved.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Slater.
Just quickly, because the last day of school is now the 19th of June, we no longer need the 10th to be a half-day, and we'd like the 18th to be a half-day. So really, you're voting to make June 10th a full day of school and June 18th a half-day of school.
Did you get 18th or 19th?
No, 19th is already a half-day of school.
That's the last day.
Oh, okay. It's already
So
half.
So we have a motion, we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any discussion?
Sounds good.
All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
We don't need an attorney to review that?
Uh-huh.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Can I ask a good question?
About?
Well, will it still be used for professional development?
On the 18th?
Mm-hmm.
We usually do our end of the year teacher awards, have a little lunch, all of that kind of stuff,
Okay,
celebratory.
so what you were planning on doing
Was moving
the
that.
10th, you were gonna do now on the 18th?
Well, the 10th was only a half day because the 11th was our original last day of school.
Right, okay, so those activities are just being moved?
Yes,
to
the
there.
18th.
Okay.
So the 19th is now the last day of
Weird, we
school.
end on-
Yes.
2 half days.
It's a half day.
Yeah.
Before we,
Twelfth is the.
before we adjourn, can I just make an announcement for the good of the order?
Yeah.
I know we have a lot going on this weekend, Shrek on Saturday, and I did want to announce, though, that we've got our second annual Lyme disease awareness walk run. It's a 5K. It's in Roxbury. The Roxbury Roadrunners are kind of working with the sophomore class. Martin Meyer, the president of the sophomore class, and my daughter are kind of organizing it, and it's a lot of fun. You don't have to be a road warrior to participate. You can certainly walk at any pace you want. I can do it, almost anyone can do it. So it's a lot of fun, and it gets you out there on hopefully a beautiful day that's coming Saturday. So Apple Lane, Roxbury.
The trail is not through any long grass?
No, it's all, exactly. That's why we're staying on paved surfaces.
How awareness,
you know?
how awareness.
And if you can't make it, you can make a donation.
You can do that, definitely.
It's in the newsletter
And
also.
half the money goes to Lyme disease research, half the money goes to the sophomore class, so it's a good cause.
Excellent. I'm back on the June 18th, that's still 8th grade graduation, yes?
The Thursday night, yes. Is that the Thursday night? I just want to make sure.
That's the 18th.
Yes, 18th is the
Yes, is that a half day?
And the high school graduation is the
Yes.
13th.
Yes. Half day and then graduation.
Graduation would be,
It's usually at 7, but don't quote me.
got it?
And Pat, the high school graduation remains unchanged on the 13th because it was established
13th?
earlier in the
Yes.
year.
We have a motion to adjourn?
Boy, you know it. Okay, everybody, remember, vote early, vote often, okay?